Hey gang, welcome back to the channel. And for this episode, our Halloween monster build is going to be What? 3 weeks ago? Seriously? Why doesn't anybody tell me? Welcome back to the channel, where I've recently fired my assistant. I was going to fire my calendar, but he's retiring at the end of the year anyhow. I believe the Illithid, or Mind Flayer, is probably my second favorite monster in the D&D universe. And leading those intelligent monstrosities is the Elder Brain. Most lore would put an Elder Brain deep in an underground cavern, or maybe in the darkest reaches of a dungeon, but what if the Illithids didn't have access to such places? They still need a place for their leader to give commands from a briny pool, right? So, let's say they find themselves deep in a forest. Spoiler alert for my players. Trigger warning, I use the word lichen in this video. I know there's been some debate as to whether it's pronounced lichen or lichen, but I've always pronounced it lichen, and according to Google, it's pronounced lichen. And let's face it, Google is the elder brain of the internet. They're everywhere. So here's my take on an elder brain. The mold I used is a silicon brain ice cube mold, which can easily be found online through sites like Amazon. I cast the mold using Perfect Cast casting powder. It mixes easily at a 3:1 ratio and cures quickly. I painted the brain with Apple Barrel's bright magenta and then gave it a couple of coats of Vallejo Game Color red wash, letting it pool in the crevices. I finished the brain with a couple of coats of Liquitex gloss varnish. Cutting electrical solder into various lengths, lay them out on parchment paper. Cover the solder with hot glue. When the hot glue dries, turn the pieces over and run hot glue on the other side. A somewhat chaotic pattern is preferred, so don't worry about being careful when applying the hot glue. Leave the bottom 1/4 inch of the solder unglued. Once dry, paint the tentacles the same color as the brain and then apply a red wash. Finish with a few coats of gloss varnish. Using 2 pieces of standard foam board, remove the paper and cut a pond-like pattern into one of the pieces. Glue the 2 pieces together and bevel the edges. Glue the foam board pieces to the cardboard piece and bevel the edges of the cardboard. Use spackle to coat the project in a thin, light coat to cover seams, blend edges, and fill in the cardboard corrugation. Once the spackle dries, use a 50-50 mix of matte Mod Podge and Anita's Earth Brown paint to base coat the project. I cut some small bricks out of foam board to add to the base. I placed them in a can with some rocks and shook them until they had more of an aged and worn texture. I used Woodland Scenics Earth Blend blended turf to flock the base, and then used dried crushed leaves to flock around the pool. All was glued on with a 50-50 mix of water and PVA glue. I created a moss look to the bricks and a few spots in the pool using Woodland Scenics light green coarse turf. For some extra foliage around the pool, I used plant bits from plant spheres I purchased at the craft store. These pop off the sphere easily, and then I just cut off the remaining stems. I used lichen for the bushes, and after dry fitting all the pieces I chose for the various plants, I glued them onto the base using PVA glue with the lichen and hot glue with the plastic plant bits. After deciding where I wanted the tentacles, I used a needle to poke holes into the base, and inserting the non-glued portion of the tentacles into the holes, I used super glue to glue them down. I also used super glue to glue the brain mold to the base. For the water feature, I used a product by JTT called Realistic Resin Water. To add some color, I added 2 drops of sepia wash, 3 drops of red wash, and 1 drop of green wash, all from the Vallejo Game Color Wash series. I stirred the colors into the resin for about a minute before pouring it onto the base. The resin seems to have a decent working time before it begins to set, so even with a minute of mixing time, there wasn't any pressure felt to hurry with the pour before setting would begin. When using this resin, work in layers about 1/8 of an inch deep and allow each layer to dry between applications. Allow each layer to dry at least 8 hours before applying the next, just to make sure each one has enough time to cure. The resin pours looking a little milky, but dries completely clear. Pour the resin from the center of the project and use a craft stick to work it towards the edges. This project used 3 30 milliliter applications to complete the water feature. To finish the base, I did some dry brushing on the plastic plant bits using Mississippi mud from DecoArt. I also used the Mississippi mud to lightly dry brush where the crushed leaves and the blended turf meet to help blend that transition together. Then I used Anita's Riviera Tan to lightly dust the plant bits. I dry brushed the top of the area around the pond with a light mocha by Apple Barrel. And then I used Apple Barrel's Sunny Day to lightly dry brush the green foliage and lichen bushes. Sealing the project before the water feature was added was done by spraying a 70-30 mix of water and PVA glue across the project. After the water effect is added though, the easiest way to finish sealing any parts that may still need it can be achieved by first using a dropper or pipette to apply rubbing alcohol to the area you wish to seal, and then using a pipette to apply a 50-50 mix of water and PVA glue to the area. You can also use this technique to help stiffen the lichen bushes to make them a bit more resilient to damage from movement, play, and storage. And here's the finished project with a few miniatures for scale. There you have it, gang, my take on an elder brain. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button. While you're here, don't forget to leave a comment down in the belows, and if you're interested in more content like this, hit the subscribe button. Thank you to all of my subscribers. Until next time, happy crafting and happy gaming. I'm Fear the Platypus, and this one is done.